Hello my friends, welcome to another Yammy Noob video. Today we're talking about embarrassing motorcycle mistakes. These aren't just things beginners do like putting a foot down during a U-turn or whiskey throttling themselves in the back of a school bus, but things just about every rider may experience from time to time. This video can serve as a guide for things to be cognizant of while out on your bike as to not further damage your frail motorcyclist ego or just to act as a bit of a funny validation. I want you to feel seen, even if it means showing you are not the only one to do embarrassing stuff on a motorcycle. This also isn't going to be any holier-than-thou clickbait motorcycle mistakes list you can find from corporate publications that say stuff like, the most embarrassing thing you can do on a motorcycle is to not do your T-clocks before riding. Like, okay, sure, whatever. I think with the collective motorcycle experience of our staff can determine embarrassing instances a little more esoteric and entertaining than that. Today's video is sponsored by us at yammynoob.co. I will talk a little bit more about the benefits of our community later in the video. Be sure to click the notification bell before we get started. Alrighty folks, here we go. The first embarrassing motorcycle mistake is being in the incorrect gear for a certain speed. There are a couple different ways this can go wrong, and each one can be typically noticed by others around you, which will leave you scorned with embarrassment. Motorcyclists are supposed to be cool, badass, and self-assured, so making a noticeable mistake will show everyone that despite your biker exterior, you really are just the same nerdy weakling your dad always accused you of being. Anyway, this has happened to someone I know, definitely not me, but someone else, a friend I know. Let's call them Sammy Boob. Say you're on the highway doing 70 or 80 in 6th gear, and all of a sudden traffic slows. You downshift a time or two, but are mostly focused on the braking quickly as to not be a human paint job on the back of the Range Rover in front of you. Then traffic begins moving again, and before you've come to a complete stop, you get back on the throttle again, not realizing you're going 20 miles per hour in 5th gear, and you lug the crap out of your engine. Not only is that probably not good for the health of your bike, you also won't accelerate as quickly as everyone else on the road you would expect a motorcycle to, and can leave you looking like a sitting duck waiting to be rear-ended by a pickup truck with the sticker of Calvin pissing on the Toyota logo. Similarly, but arguably more embarrassing, there are times you can be downshifting to engine brake and maybe you don't have the gear position indicator on your bike, or there's other stuff going on so you forget which gear you're in and accidentally drop it down a gear too low too soon, causing you to lurch forward, busting your nuts on the tank, and maybe even locking up the rear wheel for a second. That one is not a really good look, and it will make you look like a total noob to others around you. The next one has happened to everyone, and if you say it has never happened to you, at some point you were absolutely lying. The next embarrassing mistake is not putting your kickstand down all the way and tipping your bike over in a parking lot. Say you park your bike out in front of your work, eager to trade years of your life for a modest salary because of the medical debt your wife has accrued from all the voluntary cosmetic surgery has gone to a collections agency, and your kids might have to go to private school because you're afraid of the threat of secular education might pose on their benefits in the afterlife. Anyway, you're distracted by thoughts of the TPS report your boss has been asking you for, and you have yet to finish, and amidst all this, you forgot to put your kickstand down. The minute you get off your bike, time begins to move slowly as your 500-pound steed reaches the point on its fulcrum where impeding its collapse is futile, and you can no longer prevent it from crashing down like an anvil dropped off the Empire State Building, and instead just have to watch and bear witness to the culmination of all your shortcomings, not only as a motorcyclist, but also as a man, as your precious motorcyclist, the only semblance of independence you have left, collides with the concrete and a fantastic cacophony of fractured plastics and inescapable humility. Okay, maybe that specific situation hasn't happened to everybody, but pretty much every rider has forgot to put their kickstand down and drop their bike in a parking lot. Or they didn't put it down all the way and it retracted itself and fell over that way. Luckily, the damage from such instances is usually minimal if at all existent. Don't sweat it, it is definitely embarrassing though. Don't want to look like a noob? Or maybe you want to talk with other noobs? Then you should join our community over at yammynoob.co. Our Discord server is one of the best communities of motorcycle riders on the internet. We have riders of all experience levels who get on there to talk about bikes, riding, offer advice, or share their cursed motorcycle projects and memes. I do twice weekly live streams, chat with members on the server, and have our community members contribute to content on the Yamcast where we answer your questions or judge your wretched memes. Memberships cost as little as $5 a month, and along with access to the Discord, you will get entries to win all of our giveaway bikes, discount on our store, and rentals over from Twisted Road. Head over to yammynoob.co and check it out. I'll see you on the Discord server. The next mistake is particularly noticeable to other motorcyclists on the road: braking during a turn. And I don't mean trail braking, which is a more advanced braking technique where the front brakes are used for turning in and released before the apex to load the front forks and create a smaller turning radius. If you're a track rider or maybe an insane street squid, you might be trail braking on all public roads really aggressively, but that's not what I'm referring to. What I'm talking about is after you see a motorcyclist clearly misjudge their entry speed, then slowly quickly after entering their turn, they kind of upright the bike and grab a fistful of brake to slow way the hell down, and then cruise off into the shoulder or lean back over to finish the turn if they have room. Anyone who took the MSF course knows that entry speed is super important for turning, and seeing a motorcycle leaned on its side in a curve with the brake lights flashing can be a little bit unnerving if you're riding behind them, as too much brake in the wrong point of the turn can cause a rider to lose traction, and then you gotta layer down. This next embarrassing motorcycle mistake is mostly just a pet peeve of mine when motorcyclists put their feet down at a four-way stop. I have seen it done by even experienced riders. Why? I don't get it. Obviously, if there are cars you have to wait for, you need to put your foot down. It's kind of hard to track stand a motorcycle at 0 miles per hour for 30 seconds. But if the road or intersection is clear, slow down enough to not warrant a ticket or running a stop sign, check for cars, and go. This can all be done by just working the friction zone of your motorcycle. Basic stuff: clutch partially engaged, low throttle, back brake. It's like MSF 101. Roll up, look, and go. Why put the foot down? It drives me crazy. I don't even know if it necessarily constitutes a mistake, but it is kind of embarrassing for sure. Even worse is if you see someone waddle up to a stop sign or a stoplight. You got a big straight pipe 850-pound bagger with Mr. Don't Tread on Me and his old lady on the back, flags waving off the trunk, waddling up 3 car lengths to the stop sign, making sure they obey all traffic laws on their way to the militia meeting. The next mistake is pretty easy to do if you're riding different bikes, particularly older bikes. It's running out of gas. I have done this so many times. Turns out there are some motorcycles as new as the mid-2000s don't have a fuel gauge or a low fuel light. Guess what? There's some brand new bikes that don't have fuel lights. And if you're used to riding motorcycles that do, like a majority of modern bikes, and accidentally find your bike sputtering to a halt like the climax of a death march while you're out on what was supposed to be a nice leisurely cruise. Plus, when your bike dies with the key on, you usually have a nice Christmas tree of fun and exciting warning lights come up on the dash to make you think you've bestowed a litany of mechanical difficulties. Nope, you just ran out of gas like a dummy. A problem that you think would have been solved in modern society in an era where you can 3D print a new set of human lungs, there are still people running out of their gas on their motorcycle. Similarly, if you're not used to riding carbureted bikes, you spoiled little zoomer you, it is pretty easy to leave the petcock in the off position. Oh yeah, we don't want to get demonetized, I mean fuel valve. Usually the bike will still start and run for a minute or two before running dry and dying. This is pretty embarrassing. The easiest way to avoid running out of gas, even on a motorcycle with a fuel gauge, which isn't always super reliable on other motorcycles, is just to keep track of the mileage and figure out a rough estimate for your fuel range and fill up based on that. Another embarrassing mistake you can make on a motorcycle is starting your bike without pulling in the clutch. You might be thinking, it's not really a big deal. Well, it usually isn't. A lot of motorcycles won't even start without a clutch pulled in, but some motorcycles will. Some motorcycles won't start unless they are in neutral, while some will. And if you happen to be riding on a motorcycle that doesn't have either of those fail-safes and you try to start your motorcycle in first gear without the clutch pulled in, it will lurch out from under you as if it's trying to ghost ride itself out of the gas station parking lot. Seen it happen to Spite's DRZ. So sad. Even worse, if this happens when you're not sitting on the bike, it can lurch so far forward it bumps itself off the side stand and tips over. Now that would be incredibly embarrassing. These are definitely things to keep in mind if you're riding buddies' bikes that you're not super familiar with or switching between motorcycles from different manufacturers. Say you're used to riding a normal Japanese motorcycle and you get in a slightly older Harley Davidson. You may find it's a lot easier to run out of gas, start in first gear, start it without pulling the clutch, etc. Yes, I'm talking about Harley. You can start certain Harleys in gear without the clutch pulled in. Don't ask me how I know, but luckily Harley has sorted most of that stuff out on the newer bikes like our giveaway Roadster 1200, so it's not as easy to make those mistakes on. The last embarrassing mistake you can make as a motorcyclist is also easy to do when you're riding a buddy's bike. It's using the wrong hand controls. If you're used to riding the same motorcycle all the time, you get on something different, it's pretty easy to get mixed up if the buttons for the hand controls are in different spots. Some of the most embarrassing mix-ups you can do is while trying to start off a motorcycle or hitting the horn instead, or the kill switch, or hitting the starter instead of the kill switch. Oof, that one hurts. Double starting is one of the worst sounds you want to hear coming from a motorcycle, like you dropped a bunch of Shrek DVDs in a blender. And it fits your buddy's bike too, and so they're right there looking at you like, dude, what the hell? There are also hand control mistakes you can make while riding. They're also pretty embarrassing. Accidentally hitting the horn at any time always sucks because you look like a BMW driver who's just honking at everyone for no reason. Or you can get mixed up with turn signals and either signal incorrectly, not cancel them, or go too far and signal the other way. The worst offense is to accidentally hit the kill switch while riding because it can get you into an unsafe predicament as you slowly begin to slow down in traffic against your own volition. If you're moving at speed, you should be able to realize the bike is off and have time to restart the engine up and the rear tire if you accidentally hit the kill switch. Or if you hit it while coming to a stop, you won't be able to accelerate again until you restart the engine. Practice and stay focused, and you should have no problem avoiding most of these embarrassing motorcycle moments. And if you do them anyway, find solace in the fact that almost every rider has likely done them themselves at some point or another. The only truly embarrassing thing you can do as a motorcyclist is not subscribing to Yami Noob. So maybe take a second to do that right now and save yourself from being ostracized from the community. Thanks. Fact. The YKK on your zipper stands for Yoshida Kogyo Kabushi Kiki Kaisha. It is estimated that this company makes half the zippers in the world. Goodbye. Keep watching Amy Noob!